After I was murdered, my son, whom I hated so much, risked his life to avenge me. Who lived a life of debauchery, took my ashes and committed suicide after destroying the other group. My soul floating in the air was spinning in disbelief. When I opened my eyes again, I was cursing my son who only ranked second in the grade, while smashing a series of famous watches of my husband. Me. The vicious scenes were suspended, and I changed my personality first. The floor was full of glass shards on the dial, torn pieces of papers, and the trembling housekeeper and servants on the side. I silently put the last watch in my hand back to its original place, and changed from pinching to caressing my son. Zhang Chuandong took a step back and dodged my hand. His delicate but still childish eyebrows and eyes were mixed with coldness. He bent down to pick up the pieces of test paper, held them in his hands, and then turned away silently. I stared at his back for a few seconds and raised my voice. Zhang Chuandong. He stopped walking up the stairs but did not turn back. I remember you have a parent-teacher meeting tomorrow. I have time, I'll go, I said. No. Zhang Shuandong refused without hesitation and continued to go upstairs. The unspoken words were stuck in my throat. I sighed and my heart glanced at the mess on the floor and ordered someone to clean it up. Then I made a call. It rang for a long time before the other end picked up leisurely, with a messy background. What's the matter? The man's voice was careless, with a light tail, and he was humming a song in his mouth, with the style of a frivolous nobleman. But it was him who, after my death, threw away all the fun and went crazy with my husband Zhang Yan, who has always been a playboy and lazy. The corners of his eyes were red and his lips were thin. In fact, I can understand these behaviors. After all, they're father and son, but Zhang Yan really doesn't need to die for me. After avenging me, he held my urn in his hand and stood on the beach. He had made my stepmother's family go bankrupt and her family was destroyed. He was bloodless and no longer as carefree as before. No matter how bad his relationship was, he was still the wife of the Zhang family and the face of the Zhang family. My thoughts gradually drifted away, recalling that when I was still a soul, I made all those who bullied me pay a painful price. The scene I saw, the beach where I got married with him. I stood there for most of the day, and the wind blew away his usual noble demeanor. Only desolation remained. At that time, my soul floated aside, sneering and thinking, drinking and playing with beautiful sisters every day. Now he finally has a conscience. Then in my shocked eyes, he held my urn and walked towards the deep sea step by step. He never looked back, lonely and resolute, until the waves on the sea surface rolled up, covering him, and there was no figure. Only my soul was left trembling. This stupid, middle school CEO polluted the waters, and when he floats up he will be ugly as hell. At the seaside late at night, quiet, my lonely soul seemed to be trapped in the same place, and it seemed that a salty and wet wind blew over, ruffling my hair and ruffling my heart. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the time when I was still making trouble in the Zhang family. I grabbed the phone tightly, put it to my ear, and listened to Zhang Yin's casual voice. Do you want money, or? And pursed my lips. Zhang Yin said, "Oh, not caring. Okay, then I'll hang up." I quickly said before he hung up the phone, "Where are you?" He paused on the other side, and after a moment all the messy music disappeared, and it was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. "What? Do you want a divorce?" Zhang Yin's originally lazy tone suddenly became slightly cold. "Where will you go after the divorce, the Ji family? Will they let you have a good time? Did you quarrel with A Xiao again? You better not forget that your studio still has my investment. Baby, shut up now. I can pretend that I didn't hear anything." I listened to Zhang Yan's long string of words in amazement. I really don't know how he thought of the divorce from my asking him where he was. But I know he has always been like this, with a condescending indifference under his nobleness. He can speak moving love words without a smile in his amorous peach blossom eyes, and he can also easily abandon his past lovers, playing in the world, passing through the flowers, without getting a single leaf on you. And I don't have a good temper. In the words of other people in the circle, I am an arrogant and domineering tigress who destroys the world, especially after I got sick. It is especially tortuous. Otherwise I wouldn't have disturbed the entire Zhang family in my last life. I was so good-tempered just now because I was very touched by what they did after my death, so I thought about coming back to treat them more gently. Who knew that none of them appreciated it? Divorce now. Take your son away. I sneered, deliberately speaking sarcastically. As soon as I finished speaking, I looked at Jiangchu Andong, who was coming downstairs with a book. There was no emotion in his dark eyes. He looked half like his father and half like me, but his personality was unlike anyone else. I wanted to see how they reacted when they heard about divorce. You want a divorce? Jiangchu Andong stood not far from me, his tone calm. He had a sense of precocity that did not match his age. But children without the love of their parents are indeed more likely to mature early. I noticed the changes in Zhang Chuandong's expression and raised my eyebrows slightly. Your father doesn't love me, and the relationship between you and me is not as deep as the relationship between you and your tutor. Is there any need for me to stay in your Zhang family? No. His expression did not change significantly, but his words paused for a moment. After half a day, Zhang Chuandong said lightly, My father will not agree. That is not up to him, I said. The living room was silent for a while. Because I don't let you attend the parent-teacher meeting, you want to divorce? Zhang Chuandong suddenly said. I was stunned. As expected of father and son, both of them have strange brain circuits. Zhang Chuandong lowered his eyes, as if he had made up his mind. If you want to attend, attend. I suddenly figured out why Zhang Chuandong would react like this. He should think that I would embarrass him at the parent-teacher meeting, so he didn't want me to attend the parent-teacher meeting. He doesn't want me to divorce Zhang Yan even more. My heart collapsed. Mom just wants to know about your recent studies. After a long silence, I softened my voice and tried to take a step towards Zhang Chuandong. He opened his lips slightly as if he wanted to say something. At this moment, the door of the villa was open. Zhang Chuandong and I turned our heads together and saw Zhang Yun's slender figure walking in from the door with long legs. He kissed Zhang Chuandong on the neck. Zhang Yun stared at Zhang Yun's neck for several seconds, and finally said, I told the housekeeper to find someone to follow him closely. The housekeeper smiled and said, Now is the time for the young master to make up lessons. The driver was slightly startled, nodded, and put his worries into his stomach. Where do you get the courage to divorce? Zhang Yun loosened his collar and stood there casually. The traces gradually became clear. The air pressure in the villa dropped again and again. I didn't ask, but passed Zhang Yun and walked straight outside. I'm already waiting at the door. Zhang Yun's eyes met mine, and he raised his index finger slightly, and all the other 13 people in the villa left and disappeared from the field of vision. The attitude of the heart seemed to be a casual question. I couldn't help but fix my eyes on him. It was exploration, doubt, and strangeness. He was such a cynical person. Why would he? After I died? Zhang Yun lazily sat on the sofa, crossed his arms and looked at me. His tone still frivolous. Baby, you'd better remember that there will be a banquet tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's banquet will be attended by all the famous families in Hai Cheng, including my mother's family. My mother's family was very strange. They hoped that I could tie Zhang Yun, the Zhang family, tightly, But they didn't want me to live a happy life. You have enough babies outside. Don't waste your saliva and call me baby. I smiled, didn't respond to him, and sat down next to him, and my words were pretending to be casually testing. After my death, when my soul was floating aimlessly, I saw many scenes that I had never seen before. For example, the countless sisters around Zhang Yan seemed to have other hidden stories, but the specific truth still needs me to explore. Zhang Yan looked unnatural for a moment. He glanced at me and the smile on his lips also subsided. Can you still be jealous of me? He seemed to be self-deprecating and sarcastic, tapping his thigh with his fingertips. I took the opportunity to touch his thigh. The man next to me froze immediately. Xiang Yan, husband. I raised my lips to him provocatively, although domestic flowers are not as fragrant as wild flowers, but Zhang Yan stood up almost like he was running away. He took a deep breath and looked down at me. Jibai, are you crazy? Zhang Yan's ears turned red. But how could a person who has been in love for a long time be so shy? I pulled my lips and said a series of words without stopping. The child is so big. What's wrong with touching you? You're too reserved and don't let me touch you. We haven't divorced yet, and we are legally married. Is it illegal for me to touch you? The smell of gunpowder was strong. I always spoke in this tone in the Zhang family in my previous life. Yeah, it's just that this time there was a bit of teasing in the gunpowder. Chastity is the best dowry for a man. In my last life, I always felt that Zhang Yun was playing around outside, which made me sick to death. Naturally, I didn't have any good face for him, and I didn't want to get close to him. But now it seems that there are some errors in the previous intelligence. Then the attitude can be changed. Zhang Yun repeated again. You are crazy. This time not only his ears were red, but his neck was also slightly pink. Just when I thought Zhang Yan would be angry and turned away, the housekeeper hurried over with the phone in his hand. Mr. John, madam, the young master is in trouble. I frowned, looked at Zhang Yan for a second, and then chose to rush to school together. After getting in the car, Zhang Yan talked to his secretary on the phone. Do you know the reason? I turned my head to look at the fast-moving scenery outside the window, and listened to Zhang Yan's lazy and unreliable words on the other side. Hit people? You are so arrogant because I donated a few buildings to the school. TSK noisy, I don't know who you inherited it from. The corner of my mouth twitched fiercely. This was almost a direct attack on me. But Zhang Chuandong was terribly mature and quiet, and he was completely different from the innocent appearance of other 8-year-old children. I wanted to confront Zhang Yan, but I held back. I was very puzzled. What could make Zhang Chuandong hit people? The mother of the beaten child grabbed Zhang Chuandong's ears and threw him over. Did your parents teach you? You know how to hit people at such a young age. After saying that, she seemed to be unsatisfied, and slapped Zhang Chuandong again, with a crisp sound. I just stepped into the principal's office and saw the scene and heard this sentence. The next second, I looked into the eyes of the child's mother. The next second, I strode forward and slapped her twice. She was so shocked that she forgot to fight back. If it was Zhang Chuandong's fault, we will find a way to apologize and solve the problem. No matter what, you, an adult, shouldn't hit a child directly, I said without hesitation, regardless of the astonished eyes of the principal and the teachers in the principal's office. Moreover, according to what I just overheard in Zhang Yan's phone call, it was the child who scolded Zhang Chuandong first. Zhang Yan stood sideways to block the woman's attack and called out inferently, Zhang Chuandong. Zhang Chuandong kept his lips tightly shut. After a long while, he said, my parents never held a parent-teacher meeting for me because my dad has a new wife and my mom is crazy. He also said that those who are good at math don't live long. I might die in junior high school. My dad was hacked to death by his lover, and my mom died of rat poison herself. Meh? Jiangyan. I faced the child hiding in the corner expressionlessly. I clenched my fists and rushed forward, but was quickly stopped by other teachers. Calm down, calm down. Maybe my expression was too scary. The child burst into tears, and the child's mother said in horror, "Didn't you say that you can't vent your anger on children? Fuck you. You're so mean you don't have parents to control you." I stared at the child in extreme anger. The child cried even louder. In the chaos, I saw Zhang Yin was on the phone, quite serious. At this time, he could be busy with other things. When I was about to scold him, he curled his lips, first glanced at Zhang Chuandong, then looked at me and said, "I contacted someone to demolish the newly built buildings." Me. Zhang Chuandong. You still don't know how to speak. You are really hopeless. The principal also laughed and didn't believe it at all. After all, how could it be demolished just after it was built, Mr. Ja? Don't be angry first. I think both parties are wrong in this matter. After all, Qixiao hit people first. The construction of the new canteen to be built has been stopped. Zhang Yun said the last sentence slowly. The principal, who had been playing it safe, immediately opened his eyes wide, jumped up from the armchair, and rushed to the child. "It's simply corrupting the school's atmosphere. Expel him. Expel him." The child's mother opened her mouth in disbelief. "My child is so young. Why are you arguing with him? What's more, my child didn't hit anyone. He just said a few words." The principal's office was chaotic and noisy. In this noisy clamor, Zhang Yun seemed to be out of it, with one hand in his trouser pocket, his back straight, and a faint smile. I couldn't understand him. My eyes passed him and moved down to look at Zhang Chuandong. He just looked at me quietly, his thick eyelashes fluttering, his pupils dark, but no longer empty. After a while, I raised my lip and smiled at him. Zhang Chuandong didn't smile. He still looked at me like that, with a red slap mark on his delicate little face. "They shall," I called softly. He was stunned. This is his nickname. I liked to call him that when he was very young. At that time, I was not very vicious or evil. "They shall." I called him again. The crying of the child, the curse and collapse of the child's mother, the teacher's persuasion, and the anger of the principal overlapped. The small principal's office was almost filled with these chaotic sounds and was about to explode. But for some reason, I clearly heard Zhang Xuandong's very small response. "Yeah?" After returning home, I sat in front of the dressing table and looked at the row of psychiatric drugs in front of me for a long time. Then, I pushed them all into the trash can. During a small movement, I turned my head. Zhang Xuandong stood at the door. He was not yet old enough to grow up. He was not tall, holding a milk in his hand, and looked at me quietly. He didn't say anything. And Zhang Yun, as usual, would not come back tonight. The villa was frighteningly quiet. I sighed and opened my arms to Zhang Xuandong. "Do you want to hug your mother?" He looked at me for a long time, and finally came over and put the milk on the table. Without saying anything, he turned around and left. At this moment, the screen of my mobile phone lit up. I looked down and saw a video of Zhang Yan in the bar, with bright lights and wine. In the video, he smiled seductively and was the center of the audience. My spy sent me a message. "Are you attracted to him? Although he is rich, his family is strict. And you and him probably won't have anything. There are still many handsome guys here, and we also have male models. Why don't you come and I will find some affordable ones for you?" I replied, "I heard that he plays a lot, and I am pretty, so why can't something happen?" Spy only on the surface. A few short words are concise, but full of information. After the bar manager said this, he was unwilling to reveal more no matter how I asked. I transferred the balance as agreed and said, I'll come later and find some handsome male models. Sister, eat this. A younger brother fed me grapes with a smile, and other male models surrounded him, saying sweet words. I opened my mouth and bit the grapes, which were sweet and juicy. I counted down in my heart. I raised my eyes and met Zhang Yun's slightly cold, peach blossom eyes as he walked out of the box on the second floor. A group of people followed him, laughing. When the group saw me, their faces changed and they all quieted down instantly. One of the male models next to me came over and whispered sweet words in my ear. I still looked at Zhang Yun, even smiling. Ying Yin waved at him. Zhang Yun walked over with long legs and came to me. Jiba. The smile on his lips was very faint, and his voice was even fainter. Hi, husband, I said easily. As soon as this was said, the male models around me immediately showed a shocked expression, stumbling. Mr. Zhang. This is Zhang. Zhang Yun is the major shareholder of this bar and often plays here. Basically, everyone knows him. I stood up and straightened his collar for him. Husband, I didn't expect to meet you here. What a coincidence. Why did you chase me here? Seeing my indifferent attitude, Zhang Yun's slender fingers grabbed my wrist fiercely. I laughed. Isn't it obvious? He was fishing for you. Do you really want a divorce? Zhang Yun lowered his eyes and looked at me. Why did he talk about divorce again? What kind of brain circuit is this man? But I made a mistake. You don't love me and my son doesn't love me either. I might as well give you some peace and quiet as soon as possible. As I said this, I locked my eyes on Zhang Yun and observed his expression. He paused. Do you need me to love you? His tone was very calm. It was like a pool of stagnant water, no more cynicism and frivolity. I suddenly realized that Zhang Chuandong was still like Zhang Yun, like his other side. Zhang Yun now gave me the same feeling as when he was holding my urn and standing by the sea in his last life. I looked into his amber eyes and said seriously, Mead. After saying that without waiting for his reaction, I pulled his hand back and pulled him out. The bar manager was stunned. As I walked, I said to the manager, my consumption just now was all charged to Mr. Jiang's card. Zhang Yan let me pull him and didn't break free. I dragged him to my car, pushed him in, sat on his lap, and pinched his chin viciously. I hate dirty men. Tell me, have you touched other people? Zhang Yan was stunned. There was silence in the car for a long time. The closed air was filled with the smell of cigarettes and alcohol, left on me and him. It was not a good smell. I lowered my eyes, let go of my hand, and rolled down the window. No, he said. Then why do you hang out in bars every day and let rumors spread? I took the opportunity to ask. It has nothing to do with you. He raised his chin slightly, his eyes fell on me, but his emotions were not obvious. I pinched his neck with both hands and bit his lower lip hard. I laughed angrily. You don't know, right? Then divorce me. Although my mind was in a mess, my self-esteem still made me take it. I turned over and got off his legs. His slender fingers subconsciously did not move me. He loosened his hand and said, I'll ask the driver to drive. It's your spouse. Do you know the meaning of these two words? After tomorrow, I will have someone draft a divorce agreement. Unexpectedly. Okay, holding my thighs. Zhang Yun's thin lips were idly closed and he said nothing. To my surprise, he agreed to the divorce. After he finished speaking, my movement stopped. When I got home, the medicine that I had pushed from the dressing table to the trash can was replaced with a new batch and placed on the table. Zhang Chuandong stood at the door in the shadow of the door with a book in his hand. He was silent for a while, then said, "The doctor said that you can't stop taking medicine." I was absent-minded for a moment. In my previous life I had severe bipolar disorder and couldn't stop taking medicine for a day. But after death and rebirth, there is no longer the feeling of constant pain and madness in the previous life. I lowered my eyes and looked at the medicine I took countless times in the previous life. They shout, "I'm sorry." My voice was hoarse. Dong Dong's body was obviously stiff. He seemed a little confused and at a loss. I have never fulfilled my responsibilities as a mother. When I became a soul, I watched Dong go to my stepmother's sister to pretend to be good and tough. I was almost killed by my sister who wanted to get promoted to the top and eliminate the child left by her sister in Zhongyan. I cried and shouted at Dong to forget me and not to take revenge for me, an incompetent mother. But he couldn't hear me. Now I can finally tell him in person that I'm sorry. Dong. Zhang Yun's voice came from not far away, lazy but very oppressive. Dong didn't move. "Have you finished your homework?" Zhang Yun approached and lowered his eyes. "Leave him alone." I stood up, took Dong's hand and lead him behind me. Zhang Yun was choked by me, but he quickly returned to his usual carelessness. He said to me, "The Ji family will be present at the banquet tomorrow." I subconsciously retracted my hand, and Dong actually held my hand firmly. In the last life, it was the Ji family who killed me. We obviously have the same surname and the same blood in our bodies. Seeing my expression, he was silent for a rare moment and asked, "Are you going?" I curled my lips bitterly. Go to meet those people, those who can't stand my good. My thoughts drifted to a long time ago in a trance which was a matter of the last life. Zhang and I had no emotional foundation, and were forced to get married. Then we had sex every day. We had some feelings while having sex. Dong got pregnant under such circumstances. My parents were afraid that my status in the Zhang family would rise after I gave birth to a son. So my brother and sister would tell me about Zhang Yun's frivolity and philandering. I didn't believe that. But later, the Ji family secretly gave me psychiatric drugs, which turned me from a normal person into a mental patient. I was irritable and easily angered, but also fearful and depressed. I found out after I died and followed Zhang Yan, watching him avenge me and watching him become different from himself. The banquet on the second day came as scheduled. I wore a beige vested skirt, holding Zhang Yan's arm, and accepted the attention of other people in the banquet hall. "Sister," a cheerful voice sounded, and Jizin walked towards me in her high heels. When we met face to face, she smiled at Zhang Yan, brother-in-law. I smiled and asked her, "Where are Mom and brother?" Mom didn't come because she was not feeling well. She is at home taking care of Dad. Jizin answered one by one, but didn't answer Jiran. Because I know that Jiran is now arranging to make me lose face and lose my reputation at this banquet. At the critical moment, let Jizin stand up and attract Zhang Yun's attention. Even though everyone knows that Zhang Yun and I have a very bad relationship, they also know that my mental state has been seriously affected by their design. But they still don't want to let me go. They covet the position of Jiang's wife and want Jizin to take the position. I unconsciously tightened Zhang Yun's arm. Zhang Yun's eyes fell on me from top to bottom. After a while, he retracted his eyes and nodded slightly to Jizin. Gxin's smile became even brighter. She said to me attentively, "Although Mom didn't come, she prepared a beautiful dress for you. Sister, you always say that Mom doesn't love you, but in fact she cares about you very much. I'll take you to the lounge and try it on." I looked at Jizin and sneered in my heart. "Do you think there's something wrong with my aesthetics?" Zhang Yun lowered his eyes. His tone was not strong, but it made people sweat. GXIN's expression froze. What? I smiled and said. He helped me choose this fisted skirt. Jizan opened her eyes wide. You were not. She realized that her words were wrong and changed the subject. But that was prepared by your mother for you. Okay. I agreed happily and pulled my arm out of Zhang Yun's arms, but he grabbed it back. His black eyes locked on me without blinking. I looked at him. After a white chuckle. Husband, wait for me to change into a new dress to show you. The air was silent for 2 seconds and he let go. I followed Jeez in to the second floor. She pushed open a lounge and walked in. First, she handed me a glass of water and then opened the closet. White long skirt. I stood there, my eyes firmly fixed on this white skirt. Exactly the same. Exactly the same white skirt my mother wore when she committed suicide. My stepmother moved in 3 years after my mother died. I was only 7 years old that year. I don't remember much about my childhood. The most vivid memory was that day, when my mother woke up from a nap and lay quietly beside me. She was wearing a white long dress and there was a half-empty bottle of sleeping pills on the bedside. She didn't have any last words, and her behavior was normal in the days before her suicide. But every night after telling me a bedtime story, she would add a sentence. China will always love you. It turns out there is this layer. In the previous life, the G family also used this banquet to design me, but they only gave me an ordinary skirt. It should be because the Zhang family was to come these 2 days, and my stepmother couldn't hold back and wanted to disgust and stimulate me. Jizan interrupted my thoughts with a word and she smiled. Do you like it? The skirt is precious. This is the skirt that my father gave to my mother on the day he proposed to her. I reached out and held the white skirt tightly. Then you try it here, sister. I'll wait for you outside the door. After saying that, Jizan walked out with light steps and closed the door for me considerately. I carefully traced the soft texture of the white dress in my hand. 10 seconds later, I closed the closet and pushed open the hidden door designed as a decoration. This is what I ordered people to do when I just came back to life and matched the time. The secret door was bright, and when I stepped in, I could hear Jizan humming happily through another door. I also raised my lips, until I completely passed through the secret door and entered the hidden space. I saw an unexpected person. Zhang Yan. He was wearing a custom-made silver-gray suit, and his figure was lazily leaning on the sofa. His fingertips tapped his thighs from time to time. He lifted his eyelids and saw me, not surprised at all. Zhang Yan. I really didn't expect him to appear here. How did he know that I had someone build a secret door here? In my last life, I fell into their trap and was saved by Zhang Yan. But in this life, I have thought of a countermeasure in advance and will not fall into the trap again. How could he know? But Zhang Yan obviously didn't mean to explain to me, so I pursed my lips. Don't call me husband anymore. Zhang Yun pulled his lips. I choked inside a sigh. A few minutes later, there was a movement in the room next door, where I was originally staying. A gentle male voice was faint. Xiaozhi, are you okay? I felt physically uncomfortable when I heard this false voice. I took a deep breath, but Zhang Yun grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. My body was stiff. What did you do? Before I finished speaking, a slightly cool and dry palm covered my mouth. The warm breath splashed behind my ears, causing goosebumps. The voice of Jira next door changed from the initial concern and doubt to cursing. I forced myself to ignore Zhang Yun's behavior, took out my phone and sent a message to Jizin using another account. You can... Jizin immediately replied, okay, you won't be short of money after the matter is done. The first few chat records were because she was afraid of being exposed standing at the door. So she left by herself and asked me to take over her monitoring of the situation in the room. But she didn't know that the owner of this account that she trusted was the person she tried every means to harm. She didn't know that her good brother had been locked in the room instead of me. After replying the message, I turned my head. Jong-yeon was close to me, and he looked at me lazily. There was no surprise or any confusion. After a minute of silence, the sound of opening and closing the door came from next door, followed by Jiran's curses and screams. There were also the panting sounds of other men. He wanted to harm others, but he was harmed by himself. Jiran found 3 men to ruin my reputation. And now it's his turn to taste this. I felt a little better, pinched Jong-yeon's earlobe, and whispered, "Husband, the good show is on." Jong-yeon held my waist. I remembered that after today I would sign the divorce agreement tomorrow, and I snorted, "After tomorrow, you may not see such a wonderful show, and you will no longer be my husband." A hand on my waist tightened in an instant, and I groaned uncomfortably. He seemed to realize that, and the fingers that were exerting force relaxed. The sound next door was really harsh and unpleasant. I straightened my skirt and prepared to go out from the exit of this hidden space. Jong-yeon followed me. I stopped and took his hand. Return to the sinful room. There were already a lot of people gathered at the door of the room, and there were even reporters holding cameras. GXIN's eyes were red. "Sister, open the door. There is more than one man in this room, right? How can you be worthy of your brother-in-law?" The people around sighed and were surprised, and the so-called stepmother who was taking care of his father at home stood aside in elegant and luxurious clothes. She touched the bracelet on her wrist. "Jibai, this shameful slut just takes after her mother." As soon as she finished speaking, I strode forward and slapped her twice mercilessly. Everyone looked at me in disbelief, especially Jizen. She widened her eyes, and when she saw Jong-yeon standing on the other side, she was shocked and her face gradually turned pale. The staff member who came with the key that Jizen called happened to arrive at this time, and the door of the lounge was opened. The smell of decay hit me, and the 4 men were entangled together. After the stepmother saw the face of the man at the bottom who was tortured beyond recognition, she rushed over without caring about her manners and screamed, "Howard, Howard." I patted GXIN's shoulder with a smile. "Didn't you hear your brother's voice?" GXIN's cheeks flushed with anger, and she raised her hand, but was intercepted by Jong-yeon in Midra. Jizen was shaking all over, tears welling up in her eyes. "You ruined my brother. Don't rush to defend him." I smiled slightly. "I have already reported that your paper and experimental results were all fake and plagiarized, and..." The arrival of the police interrupted GXIN's horrified curses. Jizen was handcuffed, and she struggled and shouted, "You and Jiran privately embezzled G's public funds, falsified accounts, and made the accountant take the blame for you. Do you think you did it perfectly?" The stepmother shook her head in disbelief. "Your good days are over. Your 2 children are in prison. Do you expect my half-vegetative father to support you? Besides, Jong-yeon has been targeting Ji, and the lad has been desperate. Otherwise he would not have thought of such a dramatic and vicious method." I sighed softly. "Be prepared to face the hell of the rest of your life. The Ji family is about to go bankrupt. With so many debts and enemies, they have to bear some of it." My stepmother sat limply on the ground. "No. Impossible." I glanced at her expression, Leslie, and turned away. "I know that Jong-yeon is following me." When there was no one around, I turned around. "I'm waiting for your divorce agreement." Jong-yeon smiled casually. He took a step closer to me, lowered his head, and put his slightly cool lips on mine. I didn't resist, until I shook my head and felt a little dizzy. "Wait. My consciousness gradually returned, and I opened my eyes with difficulty, letting the dim light shine into my eyes. Couldn't muster any strength. After I was completely clear-headed, I saw that my hands and feet were shackled by chains. I moved, and the crisp metal collision sound was particularly loud and harsh in the room. The door was pushed open, and Zhang Yan stood at the door with a bowl of porridge in his hand. He looked down at me. I smiled, but did not question him about my situation, but said meaningfully, "Where is the divorce agreement? Don't think about leaving me." Zhang Yan did not answer directly. He curled his lips. I had a sixth sense that he had recovered his memory of his previous life. "You are crazy." I opened my mouth. He came over and put the porridge on the bedside without refutation. "Well, you want a divorce. I will not agree." I hummed and smiled and raised my eyebrows, then play captivity with me. Zhang Yan did not seem to expect me to say such a thing, and his expression was calm. "Don't think that this will make me relax my vigilance. Oh, what about my son? I will have someone take good care of him." Maybe this is the only way it was the real Zhang Yan. Under the lazy and frivolous appearance was a paranoia that was abnormal and calm. Why hadn't I noticed it in my previous life? I glanced at the porridge, then at him. "Then you feed me, I'm starving." Zhang Yan ignored me. His slightly cool fingertips fell on my cheek, and then slowly moved along my chin to my collarbone. "See, bye," he sighed softly. He responded and bumped into his eyes that were like stars and moons, but as deep as the sea. "Don't ever think about getting rid of me." His voice was hoarse. "I don't think about getting rid of you. I swear you can't leave me, right?" Zhang Yan's fingertips paused. I leaned forward, put my arms around his neck, and leaned over. Someone's wife died and wanted to commit suicide for love. Our eyes met, but in just a second he retracted his gaze and looked away. He knew that I was reborn, and I knew that he was also reborn. It's just that Zhang Yan didn't expect me to lift this hazy curtain. "After a new life, shouldn't you let me go and let me go?" I narrowed my eyes and shook the chain on my wrist in confusion. "After you died, I always regretted it." He lowered his eyes and pressed his fingertips on the chain on my wrist. "I should have locked you up from the beginning. The day before yesterday's consent to divorce was just part of your plan to lock me up," I asked. Zhang Yan didn't answer directly. He lowered his eyes and let me hug his neck. His tone was calm, and the frivolousness of the past was gone. He said, "My birthday wishes to build a golden cage worthy of you and lock you in it." I understood this sentence without a beginning or an end. In the first year after Zhang Chu Andong was born, Zhang Yan and I had a complete breakdown of our relationship. But on Zhang Yan's birthday, I still maintained basic decency. To put it in the servant's words, Mrs. Zhang couldn't remember her specific thoughts when she used this jadeite. The only thing she remembered was that I followed her. "What wish did you make?" "You didn't want me to disappear?" It was a rather irritating sentence. Zhang Yan's peach blossom eyes were half closed, and when he opened them again, he just looked deeply at me. That year, the Zhang family was disturbed by my troubles every day. I gave Zhang Yan a piece of jadeite, which was indeed very expensive, but its shape was better than a tombstone to commemorate her dead love with Mr. Zhang. Asked Zhang Yan. I looked at him and didn't say anything. Tombstone. I was asking for trouble, so I left Zhang Yan in the cake with only the candles blown out and went upstairs alone. So this was the wish he made at that time. I poked Zhang Yan's cheek and snorted, "Congratulations. You got what you wanted now. Perhaps, Zhang Yan and I can't get rid of each other. Look, after I died in my last life, my ashes had to lie in Zhang Yan's arms. But this time, it was not my ashes lying in his arms, but the real me. I always felt that although Zhang Yan always said that he wanted to lock me up. Maybe I was sick. I was quite happy. Then the divorce was over, and then I was free again. I happily crossed my legs and lay on the bed to watch TV series. Jong Yun pushed open the door and his eyes fell on me. Then he walked in and covered me with a quilt. I was shocked and lifted the quilt. Isn't it tempting? What's your attitude? Jong Yun curved his lips, and his eyes swept across my body from top to bottom. Whether I wear these clothes or not, I want to. It was always him who was locked up. I covered his mouth, turned over and pushed him down on the bed. Jong Yun and I basically didn't fulfill our responsibilities as parents. Finally one day we found our conscience. Jong Yun and I each held a homework book of Zhang Chuandong. The three of us were a little silent. Jong Yun and I checked for a long time, but we couldn't find any mistakes. Zhang Chuandong has beautiful handwriting and clear thinking in solving problems. I touched my chin and said honestly, I failed math in the 3rd grade. Zhang Yun waved his hand and threw a black gold card to Zhang Chuandong. Buy whatever you want. He's only 8 years old. What can he buy? Just when I wanted to criticize Zhang Yun, Zhang Chuandong picked up the 10 cards, walked to me and handed them to me. I looked at Zhang Chuandong. Zhang Yun raised his eyebrow. Zhang Chuandong pursed his lips. Mom buys a bag. I was stunned. This kid. Zhang Yun sneered. I looked at the family photo on the table. On the left was Zhang Chuandong's knee homework, and on the right was the new watch I gave to Zhang Yun. I felt a little dazed for some reason. In the last life, I thought happiness was so difficult. In this life, I found that happiness is so simple.